Tiptoe around with face of a stranger. Quiet observer, never get too close. I see the world, but it's through this window. Another side to see, I'm ready to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve. Some stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. He's from the city, she's from the south. Two different chapters told miles out. Their back row living in his White House. So many stories that I need to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve. Some stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. So many stories right in front of me. Some people climb to heights I've never seen. Too many falling down off their feet. These stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. Why you're the way you are. Why you're the way you are. Tiptoe around with face of a stranger. Quiet observer, never get too close. I see the world, but it's through this window. Another side to see, I'm ready to know. Not every story's written on a sleeve. Some stories take digging deep. Eyes wide open, words unspoken. Where are you going, darling? Where have you been? Stories to tell, emotions we felt, good and the bad in the hands we've been dealt. I wanna know why, I wanna know why you're the way you are. He's from the city, she's from the south. Two different chapters told miles out. Their back row living in his White House.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Silverline Wednesday Night Wham! With your host, Scott Wakefield.
That is incredible. Hello, everyone. I think that Wednesday Wham and my name gets louder and growlier every week. Thank you, Tim. I am your host, Scott Wakefield, and I am here with people much more qualified, smarter and wiser than I am. And we are here to talk comic books and talk.
Debatable.
We're going to talk characters. This is part 2. If you scroll one way or another through our previous streams, you'll see part 1 of characters. And characters are very important to stories, and we like to tell stories visually and with words. And we're here to talk about all of that. So we will have questions from you guys as you ask them on all of our streams: Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. Did I miss anything?
I think it's good.
Okay, all right. You're there. Throw us your questions, even if they don't have to do with what we're talking about at that topic at that moment. Ask them, and we will try our best to answer them and pretend we know what we're talking about.
Well, we'll make it up.
We will make it up, and you won't know the difference because we're so good. We have. I gotta embiggen my screen here, and we've got a good lineup of folks here. And I'll go last, and we're gonna introduce ourselves, and we're gonna say what we do for Silverline and what we do elsewise, and we can promote ourselves right now if we want to follow us and so forth, and then we'll do that again at the end. And about mid-show, we do have a comic book review, so stay tuned for that and everything we have to talk about. So, Tommy, you are up first. Go for it.
My name is Thomas Florimonte Jr. I've been a comic book creator early 90s. I've worked for Marvel and done some DC stuff, done some Image stuff. I've worked for a bunch of folks. I do my own comic book stuff under the Inferno Studio banner. But right now I'm inking. Well, and I've inked a lot of stuff for Silverline in the past too. I've done a bunch of the Cat and Mouse books. I've inked the original Demon Tales story. I've done little things here and there. But right now I'm inking a book called Trumps. It's based off of the card game for Silverline, and you'll see some of the backgrounds. What I'll be inking on today is one of the covers. I don't know which cover. They just give me a bunch, and I'm going to be working on one of them.
All right. Thank you, sir. You good?
Okay. Yep.
Tim, you are next.
Hi, I am Tim DK. I am the producer of the Wednesday Night Show and the associate editor at Silverline. I help run the website content, and I am the captain of the Craft blog series. I am also writing a title with Silverline. I am literally everywhere. Just Tim TK, writer. You probably find me on most social medias. I also stream on Twitch outside of that. And I guess I brew kombucha now. That's a thing I do.
That's fantastic. Whenever that's on the shelves, let us know.
Perfect.
Mr. C. Michael Lanning, you are next in the lineup.
All right, I'm C. Michael Lanning. I am a penciler, or like we like to say at Silverline, a pencil list for Silverline, and currently working on a project with our editor-in-chief, Roland Mayen, called The Rejects.
And that was one of the names tossed out for this lineup, and we passed on that one, right? The title for tonight. Let's see. Brent Larson, you are next.
Yeah, hi, I'm Brent Larson. I'm a writer, or I guess, as we say in Silverline, a writerist.
A writerist, yeah.
I'm a creator and writer on Kalis, a Silverline book. My day job is I am a filmmaker and screenwriter, and you can find me on Facebook or Brent.Vector on Instagram. So,
thank you, sir. And this is my first time meeting Elena.
Hi.
Welcome. This is your first time on the show, correct? Have you done any other
Not at all. I was supposed to be on last week, but the internet went out.
Internet does that. So
Yeah.
you are very, very welcome. We're happy you're here.
I'm happy
Introduce
to be
yourself.
here.
Tell us as much as you would like about everything you do and how creative and wonderful you are.
Hi, my name's
hold on.
Elena. Huh?
Lost video, 1 second. There we go. That's weird.
It's cool. Hi, my name's Elena. I'm currently a colorist on White Devil for Silverline. I haven't worked in comics long because I'm currently a student at the Kubert School. I'm going into my 3rd year. Cool. For those who don't know the Kubert School, seeing this, very comic book specific art school. It's awesome there. Highly recommended. And I'm sorry, I'm not very good at this.
That's fine. If you think of something else, just jump in and say, tell us. I forgot. I played the zither or something like that.
Oh yeah. So, I like Muppets.
That's fantastic.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
I love
And you're all right then. You like the Muppets. All right.
Thank you and welcome. So, Elena, if it makes you feel any better, I haven't been in the comic book world really very long at all, and they let me host this show. And like I said, I pretend I know what I'm talking about. So, welcome, and we have a lot of Cubertists, Cuberters, Cubert students, helping out with
Cubiciles
for Silverline, and so. My name is Scott Wakefield, and they let me host these Wednesday night Whams, and I am also helping out with publicity for Silverline. And I have a title coming for Silverline sometime soon called Steam Patriots. I'm the co-writer and co-creator with my buddy Rory Boyle, if he's out there. Hello, Rory.
I believe he was in YouTube earlier, and he said your beard looks magnificent.
Rory, okay, hi, good to see you. Good. We're glad you're here. So that's what I do for Silverline right now, and we might as well roll into what Silverline has going on. And Tim, is that ready to? Are you able to show the Kickstarter, or should I wait? Is that?
Yeah, we can pop that over to it.
Okay, so we've got right now. Silverline is doing a Kickstarter campaign for 2 titles, and what is special about the way Silverline does our Kickstarter campaigns is that as our work is done, the work is there. You are not speculating on a project of whether or not you'll get it, and that's a great it's a great thing about crowdfunding is that lots of people can get that help to finish a project, but Roland in his infinite wisdom said we're going to have it done. So when you back a Kickstarter campaign from Silverline, you're really just pre-ordering it. You're ordering it, and then with the option of all the goodies down the line. And if you're not familiar with a Kickstarter campaign or a crowdfunding campaign, go check ours out, and you should be seeing it now. As you go down the line for backing the project, you start very basically, hey, I just love it, here's some money, or you want the comic book, you want the product, and then down, you get more and more goodies, which is really, really cool. That's what we love. That's what we love about our model is with the independent world of comic books, you are part of the family. You join in, you get these little goodies, you can get signatures, you can get exclusive artwork, and you'll be getting Kickstarter exclusive material that you can't just walk into the store and ask for, look through for the Kickstarter exclusives. You're not going to get that. This is where you get that stuff. And like I said, these projects are done. So when the campaign is done and successful and funded, within a few weeks in the mail, you'll be getting everything that you pledged to back. So the 2 projects on there, 2 stories. We've got a great vampire story called Bloodline. And that's a really action-packed, gritty kind of story. Great superhero kind of guy, tough guy kind of hero that kicks butts and takes names. And then we've got another one called Friar Rush, and this defrocked friar called Friar Rush from the Middle Ages has made it through to modern times, modern New Orleans, and he is a tricky, sneaky, pretty evil kind of guy who is bent on undoing the goodness in the world, I guess I could say. The first issue gives us a good account of his character and then makes me very interested in seeing what's coming next with Friar Rush. So you can get those back to back on Kickstarter right now. So check it out.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Anybody else have anything to throw in? If not, it's okay. I don't want to leave anything out.
You're doing magnificently.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, well, tonight we're talking about character, and what makes great characters in stories. And we're going to try to focus as much as we can on comic books, but that always, of course, goes hither and thither to movies and novels and so forth. So one of the questions that I had for the guys was for our panel here is, do you follow either consciously with an effort or kind of in the back of your mind, do you follow try to add archetypes, those basic archetype characters into your stories? How much thought do you put into that character, those character types?
I'll just jump in here. Yeah, and I'll say that it depends. For some cases, if I am in the middle of writing a scene or if I'm in the middle of plotting something and I realize like, oh, this is where I could use a mentor type character, or this is where I could use a jester, I'm like, oh, then maybe I should design a character that kind of fits like that base niche. But I don't necessarily, when I'm at the very like base level designing or planning my story, I don't think of every character as what archetype they fill. Either it's if I feel the need for someone that fits that role, or if as I'm sort of discovering a character along the way, if I find that they kind of naturally fit into some role, then I might do a little bit of trimming to kind of fit them in there more neatly. But I never really kind of come at it from a prescriptive place.
Sure.
Yeah, I would agree. What I notice I do is I have an idea for a story and I have an idea for my main character. And as I start spinning the two together into some kind of cohesion, I will find a story need that needs to be answered, probably in the form of some character. And so I'll create that and later on realize, oh, that was the mentor character. Oh, that was the innocent, or, whatever. But I definitely don't go down with a checklist. That seems like a recipe for disaster. Anytime a checklist is involved, you're almost asking for it. So
yeah, absolutely. There's a little bit of, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
The little bit of writing I've done, I also try to stay not like, I'll tend to combine archetypes, or like if there's one certain thing about like an archetype that like might be strange to put in another, I like Mod Podging them together kind of. But yeah, I agree. If you stay too close to it, it'll end up being like a cabin in the woods type situation where you have like these kind of generic characters, and that's not good. It's not as creative as it could be. So
right.
Yeah, I think it's good to switch it up.
Yeah, and I like your comment about maybe mashing together the character types that really maybe would seem antithetical to each other, but that makes for an interesting character.
Yeah.
And Brent and Tim, yes, I don't know. I wonder if anybody goes out there and says, I need the hero, I need the sage, and they go down. I wonder if anybody does that, because it just seems like
maybe if they're working on their MFA and they're in like a hero's journey class or something.
Yeah. But when you really sit down to write a story, you're right, Brent. It just happens, and then you say, oh, this is the mentor, or
It just turns out, yeah,
the trickster, and
yeah.
So I will admit, let's see, I've listened to some Joseph Campbell interviews, but I've never read. Is it The Hero with 1,000 Faces? Is that his book?
Oh man, now I feel like an idiot.
I think so.
Well, let's just say, I guess I've exposed our ignorance already. 15 minutes into it, Joseph Campbell's Archetypes, and I did a search for it, and I got 8, 12. So I guess I didn't get down to the source, but I found. So I'll list them off here.
Okay.
So we have so we've got hero, mentor, ally, herald, trickster, shapeshifter, guardian, and shadow characters. The site that I found says that these are how Joseph Campbell described them, but I think he wasn't the first to have this idea, and he wasn't the last. So we have, and they don't all need to be in every story, but usually there's a mixture of a good portion of them all. And I would say that I think the hero character, the protagonist, there needs to be, you can't have a story without a main character, a protagonist who wants a thing and there's something in his way. So I think that character is indispensable. Am I any disagreements on that?
No.
I'm not saying anything terribly revolutionary,
but
with that.
Yeah, I was looking at our comments. We got some comments on YouTube.
Yeah.
So Royal Airships says character development obviously confined by the length of the story. How many angles can you successfully delve into while keeping a character interesting?
Yeah.
Wait, so is it like how many things can you add before the character becomes like unrealistic, or like their motive doesn't become as substantial, kind of?
I'm guessing that's kind of what he's talking about. Is how much character can he build into while keeping it interesting, while still being within the confines of the story, so the story is still happening. You're not taking time away from the story.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Well, I don't want to talk first. Go ahead if anybody has anything.
Well, one thing I would add is you don't want anything that doesn't fit in the context of the story. But that's the awesome part about characters, is that when you're truly dealing with and writing a character that lives and breathes, everything about that character is germane to the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if Luke Skywalker wasn't such a wiener? I mean, you wouldn't have Star Wars. You'd have a completely different movie, right? I mean, what if Han Solo was like a lounge lizard type who actually wanted to hang out in cantinas and sing? I mean, then you'd have a totally different movie. But the fact is, you know who these guys are, and the more you build into them, the more character moments you have are great. But you don't take, Star Wars is a good, why not? It's so archetypal and all by itself. But Luke Skywalker, all the facets of his personality all lend itself to the plot and everything in there. Like, did he ever have a pet? How does he feel about cruelty to animals? You don't care, because it doesn't matter. Not in that story. Now, when you get into the ancillary stuff, that's when you start hearing a lot about, the non-canon stuff. It's because suddenly you're not telling the main story anymore, and you're going to need more of that character depth.
Mm-hmm.
But depending on the story you tell, you're gonna throw in character stuff, but it has to be germane to the story, or else it's just a distraction.
So that, I don't want to jump to it yet. So we'll get to it. I wanted to talk about how much time you have to introduce a character is just a teensy bit. you've got to establish that character. And we'll talk about that later on how to do that. But part of the question is how much time can you take? That's why with short, like pulp stories, characters tend to be a little two-dimensional. Like James Bond, a little two-dimensional for a while until you can, either in the books or the movies, start to make them a little bit more multifaceted. But I think it's important to flesh out the character within the confines of the story, but not flesh him out so much that he is all of the things. You've got to have this guy. Luke can't be Han, and Han can't be Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan, you can't have all those. That's what makes the characters interesting. Like what you were saying, Brent, it fits within the confines of this archetype of the hero, the mentor, the ally, the trickster, rebel. So I don't know. Do we answer that question? Are we getting a thumbs up from him or anything?
I feel like it got answered.
Okay.
Second one.
Feel good about it,
Deborah on YouTube wants to know, Brent, how'd you get so attractive?
Oh.
Are you serious? I was just thinking, look at my hair. It's like someone shot me, and here's the exit. Oh man.
Do you know this person? Should you? Do y'all need to go into a private room or something?
Yeah, I'd rather not.
Perfect.
Actually, yes.
Yeah.
Me
right.
and my hair.
Well, Brent, we're waiting for an answer. Okay.
But
right.
Royal Airships is giving us the shaka, so I think we got it.
Oh, good. All right. Thanks, man. Okay, so I want to keep talking about those archetypes, and let's see. I'm not going to sound super smart here. I'm not going to take credit for it because I did look some of this up. So for heroes, of course, I mean, we talked about Luke. We've got, and I'm not coming up with these myself. Neo, Batman, Harry Potter. Usually, the hero is the protagonist. It's the person the story follows, or at least that portion of the story. You know, I guess like Walking Dead, they each have their own little storylines within that world. So they become the hero, but they aren't always acting like the hero. So there's a differentiation between the hero of the story and then being the actual hero archetype. Those don't always made up. Mentors, Obi-Wan, Morpheus, Dumbledore, Gandalf, and then allies, of course, the sidekick, Hermione, Chewbacca, Watson, Robin. Herald characters, I think once we get beyond those, they get a little bit more, they get a little harder to define, or they're not as concrete, like you can just point to and say, I know what that is. They're an item or an event that something's about to change. They tell us they're heralding change. So they're not always a person, but every story, I think every good story, there's something has to change. There's a change in the circumstances for the hero. So that herald character or item needs to be there. This example I found is R2-D2 with the message from Leia. Hogwarts Owls. And if you want to chime in, let me know. If you got a great an example of any of these characters, throw them out there. And if you don't agree with this list, it's not my list, so I won't take it personally. Trickster characters, a lot of times they're the humor. We've got Donkey from Shrek, Dobby from Harry Potter, Mulan's Mushu. That's the Eddie Murphy dragon, right?
Yep.
Mm.
So in this list, we've got shapeshifter characters. I think these are the ones that add a great bit of depth, because we watch them change, and they they add that question to the story of, do we trust this person? Don't we trust this person? So the examples: Han Solo, Severus Snape, and this one puts in Catwoman as a great example. I think that's true. She sometimes is helpful, and other times an outright enemy of Batman. Then we have Guardian character archetypes. They stop the progress. They are an obstacle. Might not be an enemy, but they're there to warn the hero that they shouldn't go ahead. There's danger. The Whomping Willow and Harry Potter. I don't know any others off the top of my head. Those weird hand things in Labyrinth that talk that tell her to go back. Right?
I'd say even in some cases, maybe like a Heimdall who would stop Thor from using Bifrost to say like, "Hey, things are messed up," or Dad needs you here.
Huh.
And then shadow characters, they're usually the villain. Not always. What's kind of cool is once you look at these, you can fiddle with them, and they may or may not be on the hero's side or against the hero. But Darth Vader, Voldemort, Sauron, those are the villains, the shadow characters. I don't know. Can anybody think of a shadow character who's not the villain? Might have to come back to that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have some inspiration. So as far as heroes, because we really have to start with, if we're going to write a story, we've got to have a hero and a protagonist. They have to be that hero. I'm going to use the word protagonist because they don't always fit into the hero archetype. That protagonist has to want something. And what makes a great hero, we talked about this last time, is flaws. Having a perfect protagonist can be difficult to move the story along. So I'll throw it out there. Who's got some favorite heroes from any story? I mean, it can be novels, comic books, movies. Who and why do you really love as a story's protagonist?
I'll go for the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings has awesome protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
I think of specifically Frodo and Aragorn. And I know there's a lot of different grids you can work with when you're trying to figure out who your characters are. The one I've always found really useful is, what does your character want and what does your character need?
Mm-hmm.
And those two are good examples of, they want something that's good, but what they need is better. And sometimes what they want in the good interferes with what they want in the better. Like Aragorn wants to help his friends and basically stay out of trouble because, what's his name? His ancestors' blood runs through his veins, and he could grab power if it was ever presented to him. But what he needs to do is man up and get over it and then go and lead everybody to victory. So his innocent desire to stay out of trouble is a decent goal, but it interferes with what he needs to do, which is embrace the role he's been given and lead the free world against evil. So I've found that paradigm to be really useful whenever I'm creating characters in film or in comics. It helps me to know who they are and why they do what they do a lot.
So okay, who's the true hero of Lord of the Rings? Is it Frodo? Is it Samwise?
Who's the true one?
Gollum.
Don't say that on the internet. It might have an opinion.
Yeah.
Never.
Well, every good story has. I mean, I'm under, boiling things down. Yeah, definitely Joseph Campbell's archetypes are gonna be interesting to farm out.
Yeah.
But we're never going to be able to say that Frodo is the hero of Lord of the Rings. Now, it isn't Samwise, because Samwise just doesn't get enough character time. And really, we get into Frodo more than Samwise. So Samwise gets a secondary role. Sorry, fans, that's just the way the book is set up. But, and I would actually say the same for Aragorn. Aragorn is a really cool B character in Lord of the Rings. So I would actually say Frodo is the hero. So
as much as I love Samwise, I'm inclined to agree. But I think that's what makes the Lord of the Rings so amazingly incredible, is you have such depth of characters. While Samwise, if you had to plug him into one spot, you'd put him in as an ally. But he is heroic on many, many, many occasions, and they're all such fantastic deep characters. And back to Rory's question, we've got 900 some pages to flesh those characters out.
Mm.
What about anybody else? You got favorite heroes and why you love him or her or it?
A book that came up pretty recently, and that I read earlier this year, A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. It's part of his First Law series. It's like trilogy number 3 in it. He has a character in it called Leo Dan Brock, who is kind of your traditional knight prince character, but with just enough thrown at him to make him different and very interesting. One, he's not really a prince. He's like a lord protectorate of a lesser kind of dukedom to the north, kind of like the crap hole of the kingdom. And his eagerness for glory in combat is ultimately what does the worst for him. And the second he tries to do anything diplomatic, it backfires because everyone else is very bloodthirsty in this sort of. It's kind of Game of Thronesy. So he's through the series of the first book, it kind of develops not too much bitterness, but just enough, where you see him try to be kind of like the hero, and he is the hero archetype, but he's just ineffectual enough that he can feel it, and it starts doing a little bit of soul rot, but he's still like a good character that wants the most good for the most people, but he's really angry about it at times. And there's just enough depth there where he's an archetype that thinks for himself. That's how I feel about him, is that he is the archetype, but he has enough thought that he feels like it's his own person.
What's the name of the book again?
A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. There are it's part of the book series he has called First Law, where there are 2 previous trilogies.
A Little Hatred
going on the list.
So I've always been a Chronicles of Narnia fan from childhood. The movies were good, okay, bad. At least that's my assessment, my quick critique. But in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, I liked Edmund's character because you had watched his story arc from Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe through to that, to being heroic. And then he became the example, the mentor to Eustace, and Eustace was just a vile, miserable, petulant, selfish child, and that's how Edmund started in the first story. So I love that story progression through, and then the roles kind of changing for Edmund. And they're kids' books, but they're wonderfully fleshed out characters with depth. and he goes through. Edmund has his moods. He wants to slap Eustace, and then he's gentle with him and understanding. And so that's one of my favorite stories. I love then the retribution and change that Eustace goes through, which is another facet of great storytelling and great characters. I love to see in any medium. I'm talking a lot. Anybody else have anything? Elena, thoughts?
It's really difficult because most of the comics and movies I like, it's always tend to be like a group. Like I'm a big fan of X-Men, New Mutants, Goonies as like a movie example. Yeah. But I guess what comes to mind is I always less of a character in specific, but a hero that is almost like a Luke Skywalker type, like young, whiny, and then just has like a ton of character development.
Right.
Yeah, I like always sticks with me that way. Like even this is really dumb, but I have a D&D group, and my character I based off Niles Crane from Frasier.
Oh, okay.
You got Frasier fans out there.
He's a barbarian?
No, he's a paladin. But he's like he's just awful. But I really hope he'll have some like great character arc in the story, because I like those like Mikey from Goonies and like Sunspot from New Mutants, like those characters that are just kind of bratty, but slowly but surely make their way to having like an Edmund type, like I guess would be a good way to put it. Yeah. I have to think about this more.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, the hero in Steam Patriots, his name is Felix, and he's 15 years old. Same thing. He thinks he knows everything, and he's going to have a rude awakening. I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, his petulance and self-centeredness is going to cause a big problem. And I think we all said, we love characters with flaws, and then when those flaws mess everything up, I think that's great storytelling.
Yeah.
When the characters cause the problems, that's good stuff.
World Airships says he likes Kevin Sorbo as Hercules. Great series. His character develops quickly, but he has experiences that change him little by little over a long period, mostly due to ancillary characters.
I know who he's talking about. I never watched that show, though.
That's a good example, though, of how a story develops.
I think I'm sorry.
Has a purpose. Go ahead.
But I think a better protagonist out of that, as far as that series, would be Xena. In that respect, because you're talking about somebody who started off very, very cynical and vile, kind of just turning into a wholly different person by the time that was over with. That's that kind of protagonist that comes out of being the antagonist is an interesting aspect to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Elena, you mentioned X-Men too. It's a group, but they all can get plugged in. And I don't mean that to limit anybody, but I mean that when you have the group of people, it makes a really well-rounded group to follow for storytelling. And instead of the story just being like so with one character and that character's feelings, and it can go complete curveball. I mean, think of the problems Wolverine causes for Cyclops, and it's a great way to put that cast of characters together who struggle. Has anybody taken? I'm sure we've all taken those. What do you call them? The personality tests, the Myers-Briggs, and so forth. Which those are all fine. Has anybody taken one called the Enneagram?
I've heard about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one's very in depth, very, very in depth, and that one has all the personality types are numbered, and it's one of those you got to pay to find out. I'm sure I could have found out more, but that puts puts our character descriptions. If we look at those translate over to how we can describe characters, or even think about how we interact with other character types. So I think it'd be neat if you look up Enneagram sometime. I'm on the EnneagramInstitute.com. It's ENNEAGRAM, Enneagram. And what's neat about the Enneagram wheel is, I think you can put them in a wheel, is how they interact with the others. And not only are you let's say a 1, I'll tell you, 1 is a reformer, rational, idealist, principled, purposeful, self-controlled, perfectionist. Very often, I guess, a paladin would fit into a reformer, or maybe a helper. But what's interesting is when you are functioning and you're doing what you do and you're doing it well, you're a reformer, but then you can be the negative of also a number 3, an achiever. So your negative side, while you are an achiever, you're success-oriented, but you might be so focused to the point of it being negative, or so pragmatic that you won't think beyond what's in front of you, or the logical side of it. So the Enneagram character descriptions for ourselves, we could apply those to characters in a story, and then you see how they would match up. I use Cyclops and Wolverine. They, in a fight, they can kick butt right next to each other, pretty much locked arm in arm. But in a discussion over tactics or relationships, or how to handle any situation, they're going to be at opposite ends probably. So the Enneagram, you've got there are 9 character types: peacemaker, challenger, enthusiast, loyalist, investigator, individualist, achiever, helper, and reformer. And I like that it goes way in depth. I'd encourage you all to look into those, and when you're thinking about how your character would interact with somebody else who's different.
Find out a little more about yourself, it sounds like.
Oh yeah. And when I was in the Coast Guard, we did those personality types to also know that, like, because we got to work together as a team. But well, just like any relationship, and with a spouse or a significant other or friends, first thing in the morning you might be the quiet, thoughtful type, and when your friend comes in and is gobble 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 first thing before coffee, you might want to explode and throttle your friend. But when you understand that that's what that friend needs from you, to just hear blah 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 blah, and if that friend understands you and what you need at that time, the quiet, that you can generally, hopefully, figure those things out. If you never recognize those things, you can never discuss them. If you never know it about yourself or know it about that other person. And once again, I'm talking too much. Chime in, say, shut up, Stat.
Enneagram.
Oh no, it's all good.
There you go.
What's that?
Cassie on Facebook says for heroes, they liked Riddick, but only in Pitch Black.
Yeah,
I got that one.
How many? I'm showing my ignorance here. Riddick is how many movies?
Vin Diesel.
There's 3 now, 2 games, and I believe a couple comics, maybe a book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you? Why? What is it? What changes from 1 to later incarnations? Is she still there? She can answer that?
I believe at that point it becomes a Vin Diesel vanity project.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to say, that it becomes money. He wanted to make more movies, and so they actually went backwards in time.
I'd say the other, kind of like my love of like the Star Wars extended universe. I believe the same kind of effect comes into play there, where it's not directly related to Vin Diesel, like in the games and the comics. They actually do delve more into the storytelling of what it'd be like to be the last living of a super soldier slave race. Like, what kind of stress would be on your mind at that point? Mm-hmm. And so they delve a lot into that with, I believe it's like Escape from Black Athena or something like that, where it's talking about his escape from the prison where a lot of his people were killed on.
Yeah, because the first movie, he was just a dude that had the special eyes and could see in the dark.
Yeah.
And then they had to come up with what he was. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, it could be argued he wasn't the main protagonist in Pitch Black. It was what was her name?
Yeah. He felt like the MacGuffin.
I think the guy who created him actually had that whole idea kind of mapped out of who he was.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because I remember him saying something before and why you got something vastly different in the second one than you did in the first one. So I think he kind of had an idea of who that character was. So he was always kind of going to be he was the star, but, not really.
Interesting.
Well, thank you, Cassie, for that. We can move on beyond heroes. We've got other characters, of course, mentors, allies, tricksters, that person that you can't quite pin down, who might change throughout the story or might change from one person to the next. Of course, Han Solo is kind of that roguish trickster. Can you rely on him? You don't know. Anybody else have thoughts on great archetype or actual characters that filled the archetype well?
Well, to continue with Star Wars, I think Lando fits that almost even more than Han Solo.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you just it's a little different because Han Solo, it's very on the surface he is already kind of shifty, but with Lando it's he's charming. Yeah. He seems like a proper businessman, and then but really there's a lot more going on there. He's working with the Empire. It's oh my gosh. So I think a character like that. I lost what I was saying. I'm so sorry. My brain just went wow.
No, that was great, because I like that, because it's we have Han, and he's like this much the trickster, but then when you put him next to Lando, you're like, oh wait, whoa, I believe Han before, and once we know what we know,
yeah,
before I hitch my wagon to whatever Lando has going on. Great point.
But where would a character like a Jack Sparrow fit in all this? Because he's I know he's our good guy, but he's all over the place. He's a good guy. He's a bad guy. He's a thief. He's he's
I'd say jester.
So he's like a mix of a jester and a shapeshifter, because he does as much to harm the progression of the heroes as he does to forward it. Yeah.
Bad luck, good luck, no luck, all kind of. He's everywhere.
He's in the same category as the zombie monkey for me. He's just some random ball of everything.
So does he fit? Is he an example of a protagonist who's not the hero archetype?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Oh yeah.
But is he the hero of those movies?
Yeah, that's what I was
going to say. But if he's supposed to be, maybe is that reason the movies work and don't work, because we don't really know what he is. We're just supposed to keep going along with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's why Orlando Bloom's character's there. I can't
there you go. Yeah. So what? So who is Orlando?
Orlando. You've got Will. You've got Elizabeth, and they are very clearly good, and everyone knows what they want. They fit the bill better as a protagonist.
Yeah.
And then Jack Sparrow seems very much like the trickster, the one who.
So he's more like the Han Solo in this case.
Yeah. Nobody really went to the Pirates movies to see Orlando Bloom.
Right.
I mean, got some skills, it's true, but I'm sorry.
You talk about box office draw versus protagonist in a story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great point. The hero doesn't necessarily have to be the star. So,
but that brings up a point as far as your protagonist needs to be somebody who can relate to the person consuming the product, book, movie, whatever. They're new to this world. And that protagonist is kind of guiding you through while he's also or she's also learning what's going on around it. Just like Orlando Bloom didn't really know about the pirates. However, he had Jack Sparrow to kind of guide him, and it helped guide us into that world to get us more involved in that story.
So he's also a mentor.
Yeah, did he fill the mentor?
And he's a mentor. Jack Sparrow is everybody. That's not right. He shouldn't be so many different things.
Was there another character? I think I've only seen the first 2 or 3. Is there another character that acts like a mentor, like a Gandalf or a Dumbledore?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, what's his name? The actual like the guy who actually like the helmsman. What's his name?
Yeah,
he's more the traditional mentor. Where he's like it's like Jack is on crack. Here's the explanation of things.
Well, I mean, it turns out the main bad guy, and I can't remember his name. The main bad guy in the first one, turns out to be a good guy in the rest of them, right?
Yeah,
Barbosa.
Barbosa.
Yeah. So and he kind of guides the story along after we get past the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they really messed that up, didn't they?
I'm saying the protagonist is kind of your cars, your vehicle into this world. And that's one thing to have to keep in mind when you're creating him is like even Harry Potter, for instance. Harry Potter didn't know anything about the wizarding world.
Right.
Grew up completely oblivious to the whole thing. And now we're along on the ride with Harry Potter learning about all this stuff. And so it's kind of your protagonist. Question is, does your protagonist kind of have to be oblivious to what's going to happen, as in what world they're entering? Or can you have a protagonist that already knows everything? And then that kind of comes off trying to go ahead.
I don't think you necessarily need to, but a lot of times you do need to have that kind of believable character or audience insert character where you can get away with the exposition dump by having someone who genuinely would not know if it's done well. In the same vein as Harry Potter, you have Imaginary Beasts and Where to Find Them, which did kind of very mixed reviews. But you have the protagonist, who is a relatable character. He has kind of relatable goals and problems, who is very much the expert on all matters at hand. But he just happens to pick up a schmuck sidekick who needs to be like told what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's kind of Dr. Watson.
Yeah.
But because everything we see from Sherlock Holmes is from Watson's point of view, and kind of Watson definitely really wasn't the protagonist in that sense, but he's kind of watching the protagonist, I guess.
Yeah. We do have some characters mentioned in the different chats. So I'm just going to go through here and say them real quick. I also got some questions we can get to at some point. But Cassie says they like Morpheus as a mentor.
Sure.
Boba Fett says he likes Riddick as an anti-hero, I believe. And then Cassie also mentions John Wick was a character who knew everything and didn't necessarily have that insert because everyone else in the world was already an expert on assassinating.
Yeah.
But actually, I really like John Wick because it's a world that requires very little world building, even though as we keep on getting more movies, you realize that those guys were really like deep into some Illuminati books when they were coming up with the world for it. But I like John Wick as, even though he is kind of the super assassin who would be very unrelatable on paper, his main conflict isn't necessarily that, his external conflict is that there are all these Russians and then later different types of mob triads are trying to kill him. But his personal conflict is that he is a tired middle-aged man who just wants to retire. And who's going through family troubles. And that is something that I feel like most people understand, and the fact that keeps on being brought up, that he's doing this not because he wants to, but because essentially it's part of his career, and that it's his main goal is just trying to find a way to get out.
And it should be mentioned with John Wick, John Wick has a very good knowledge of the world that is the movie that he inhabits, but his sense of loss and his sense of wanting to get justice for his dog and this and that actually makes the world unknown to him.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really have a lot of movies where the guy or the woman knows so much about what they're doing that they always know from beginning to end, because then you don't have any conflict.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no question as to, should he or she go left or right? The answer is, well, they already know. And then suddenly the audience is like, well, that's kind of boring.
Yeah.
So you can have a good understanding of the world you live in, but you have to have something in your life that still creates this sense of unknown in it. And that's where you operate.
Yeah. And they do it very kind of the what's called clue investigation style, which you see in a lot of Hard-Boiled, where the answers only come by picking up physical clues or finding like tangible bits of information, which we see with each person he kills and interrogates. But he has to backtrack the entire thing from the moment his house is broken into. He has an idea of where their association is, but he has to find each person to link it back to the head of the mob, and then he has to link it back to how do I take these guys down and where is their stuff. It's not.
We learn it as he's relearning it, kind of.
It's not just he knows where to go to fix the problem. It's that he understands the problem. That's where his knowledge comes into play. But that just kind of leads him into finding the right points to press to unlock the next part of the solution.
Excellent points, all of you. I didn't have anything to chime in with all that. Great job. I think right now would be a great time. We're going to take a break coming up. Just a second. We will watch a comic book review.
Yeah.
When we come back, we will continue this discussion, and we are going to talk about, as storytellers in every medium, any medium, how to introduce a character with the most bang for our buck, either visually or with words. How do we do it? And we will talk about that on the other side of this review. We'll see you in a minute.
Hi, it's Wayne Hall back again with more indie comics you can order through your local store. And this week I thought I'd go 180 degrees from last week when I talked about Hilo, which is a very comical, largely aimed at a younger audience book. This time I would go the other way, and I wanted to talk about The Killer. This book is about as different from Hilo as you can get. It is a book from France originally. It was picked up by Archaea. Archaea is the one that printed it in America, and of course there was an English translation. It was originally from France, as I was saying, and let me tell you the description of the series. A professional, a man of few scruples, nerves of steel, and a steady trigger finger. A man whose crimes might be catching up with him. A man on the verge of cracking. Again, this was done in France, and where you're so used to comics in the U.S. and other parts of the world, where the bad guys are really bad all over, and there's just terrible things bad about them. And, even Lex Luthor, who's a businessman, is a terribly bad, moral businessman, even though he's successful, apparently. But in this book, it looks very differently at somebody who should be a terrible, terrible person, and he is an assassin, as the title gets you to say. And what happens is we get to view his life from his perspective. And he basically never stays one place too long. He's off going, and whenever he's hired to kill somebody, he goes off and does them. And we get to see how he does it. We get to understand why he does it and how he got into this life. And he's not a terrible person. He just has discovered that this is something he's terribly good at. And so he commands quite a nice high salary in order to do these kinds of things. And like most people, though, he still wants to have a decent life. And so all that money that's coming in when he kills people, he's starting to invest into other businesses and trying to be able to live like a real person does. And so as he's going around the different parts of the world, he meets different people. He, of course, meets a woman that he falls in love with, and things start to shatter as he goes along, because there's no way he can let a woman know what it is he does for a living and where all this money comes from. So we get to see his transformation as he starts out and he goes along, and it's really a fascinating character study. If you really thought that all assassins were terribly awful people, corrupt to the core, this book is going to surprise you, because it does not go that way. He is just a skilled technician, is the way I would describe him. And he does interesting things with people, and I won't go into all the details of how he kills people, but it's pretty gruesome. The artwork is pretty interesting, too, because French books and books from Europe often have a different color scheme, a different style to the artwork. And it's very, very interesting how it goes on. We get to see him. He's on a boat. Of course, he's got lots of money. He can do whatever he wants. And he's on the ocean. And the artwork is really great in this book, I have to say. You know, it's beautifully done. It's tremendously rendered. And I have to say that at times I felt really bad about that, because here is this terrible person, or this person who lives a terrible life in that sense, going around killing people with no remorse, and yet here's this gorgeous art going on all around him. So it's a really interesting contrast in how things go. And I have to say, if you want to see something that's going to challenge your thinking, this book will challenge your thinking. It comes out in 5 volumes. It is from Archaea, and if your local shop for some reason can't get it through them, you can get it through, I think Amazon has it and other things like that. So other places that you can go to can get those things for you. I have to say, you've got to be in the right mood to read this book, because you have to be able to take these terrible things that he does to people in stride, and still be able to read the story with a great deal of understanding, shall we say. So it's a very different book. I loved it because it didn't look at things the way I expected. Like I said, the art's stunningly done. The story is really well done. The characterization is very strong. The people he runs into are all over the place, all over the world, and they're very different people. So I highly recommend The Killer. And I'm sure I'm mispronouncing the names. I think it's Jacquemont and Motz, but I don't know for sure because I think it's French, and that might be something I don't necessarily have a good command of. So, because this is something different, let's go straight to the grading and talk about it. The writing, I would give the writing a very strong A, because it takes something to make a person who does something so horrendous to people and yet develops us with sympathy towards that character. So I really did like that. And like I said previously too, the art is excellent. I mean, the color, the facial expressions, any movement and stuff like that, it's all done very strongly. So I even have to give that art a grade of A, and really good. Lettering, I'm always critical of lettering, because I always think they should do it a little, like, there's places I think it could be done a little better. So I'd give it a B+. Literary merit. Will this hold up over time? Yes. I think this is the kind of a book that even 20, 30 years from now you could pick up and read, and you would gain things from a big understanding. You'd get to understand things and see things from a different perspective, which to me is one of the functions of comics, is to be able to take us where we haven't been before, to help us understand things that we might not understand any other way. And I think that this book is just super strong in that way. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. But it is an amazingly, amazingly profound book. And I have to say that I highly recommend it. I think it's just one of those great books. Now, fun factor. Fun factor is probably an F. There again, these kinds of books always seem to have dark humor in there, and there's a little bit of dark humor in these books. But let's just say, if you're reading this book for fun, no, it's not going to be fun. So you're going to get to see things that you haven't seen before. I would F on the fun factor. Now, overall grade, altogether, given what the book is and how successfully it pulls it off, I still have to give this book an A. It's again, if you want to see something you haven't seen before, if you want to understand maybe why people are assassins, this might be the book to help you understand why they do that. And the thing of it is that they're not necessarily villains in the purest sense of the word. And that is something I think we could use a little more understanding of. I always want to see people from their own perspective. Everybody always says that a villain in their own story sees themselves as a hero. Well, he doesn't see himself as a hero. He sees himself as someone who is successful. And that's a big difference in his world. I have to say, when you get to the end, the ending may surprise you. Surprised me, I have to say. So it's a very unusual book, something I think you're going to really enjoy. If you love variety like I do, you're really going to find this a tremendous read. There are other books that these people have created and have come out through, I think, Archaea as well. And I could go into them all. There's one that went into politics, interestingly enough. That was interesting. But again, it's the killer. And, if you know what's going to happen in this book, I'd be very surprised. I was surprised when I read it, but I was gripped. I had to get every issue of this. And you notice I have all of them. This is the 5th one. I have all 5 in hardcover because this is one of those books I want to keep and be able to pull out and read when I feel like it. And I get that feeling every once in a while when I want to read an extended story that's well done and go someplace I haven't expected it to go. So it's a killer, and that's where we are this time. I'll be back again with more in the near future. But until then, keep reading your comics.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with Silverline Wednesday Night Wham! Hosted by Scott Wakefield.
Every time. It is Silverline's Wednesday Wham! Thank you, Tim. I am your host, Scott Wakefield. Brent and C. Michael had to head to bed. They were sleepy heads.
Yes, I think so.
Continue with our conversation here with all of you out there on the interwebs. We are discussing characters and what makes great characters, what makes bad characters, and how different character archetypes fill the little roles, the little bits of a story to make a well-rounded story or group of characters that we really, really want to follow, that we fall in love with, that we hate, that we want to strangle, that we wonder why do they make those decisions, what makes great characters. And during the last hour, we talked about those columns or boxes or however you want to that call it, that we can fill, and not in a rigid we have to do it way, but so we get an idea of our story world. We have heroes, we have mentors to the heroes, we have tricksters or shadow type characters that block the hero's progress, and when we talked about what characters are out there that we love that do fill those roles, and it's not always a yes, that character fits in that description. What makes stories and characters like that so cool is that, like we discussed, Captain Jack Sparrow, he's an odd one, and we could probably talk. We did decide he's not the hero, but he's at times a mentor, a trickster, and various other archetypes within the story world. Before we go too far, I want Tommy to tell us what he's working on here. We're seeing his screen as the large screen and his work.
This is I think it's there's the first issue of the Trump's book is it's 2 parts. So this is page 20 of the second part of the book, but it's based off of the card game, like when you're playing cards and you slap the Trumps down on, so it's based off. So it's the 4. I wish Roland was on here, the writer, because he's the one that knows the story. But it's there's 4 armies and they're all fighting. I think over a land. I haven't seen the whole script, so I'm not really sure how it ends. So I don't want to give too much about what the story's about. But this is. I think this is actually one of the Jokers that I'm not sure which. Well, of course that's the Joker because he's got the little thing around his neck. So that's the Joker. So he played, like the cards. When you get the Joker card. I don't know which suit that. I guess maybe that guy's got a diamond on his head. So maybe he's the. No, the Jokers are Jokers, right? There is no suit for those guys,
right?
But they kind of jump around from. I guess they're the ones that are causing it's like Loki, I guess. He's probably causing a lot of the
perhaps a trickster of some sort.
I guess so. Yep. But apparently in this scene he's taken over the throne of somebody. So there's a J, maybe that means Joker. I don't know.
So that's a really cool design though.
It is really it's really cool. And so you are inking digitally over whose pencils?
Tom Hedgeland is the penciler for this book, and Thomas, and so with 2 Thomases, it'll be the 2 T's on this one. But I'm inking it on an iPad Pro. I'm using Clip Studio. I'm pretty much just using the standard brushes. Like I said in the intro, I've been inking for quite a bit, so. I'm just going at it, just inking.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
It looks amazing.
I appreciate it.
And I don't earn my paycheck unless I mention that we currently have a Kickstarter campaign going. If you're just joining us, we'd love for you to hop over to Kickstarter. We've got a double feature. We've got a story called Bloodline and a story called Friar Rush. Each of them, or both of them, a little noir, a little gritty, and on the horror end of scary, but still within the PG-13 realm. Bloodline's a great vampire story with a butt-kicking, gun-toting hero, and Friar Rush is a story about a mischievous, and more than mischievous, that's being kind, leading towards pretty evil, defrocked man of the cloth from Middle Ages who has come to modern day New Orleans to wreak havoc. And those stories are all complete. If you can support us on Kickstarter, once that's funded, once the campaign is done, those stories, those comic books, and the extras that you order will go in the mail for you to enjoy for the rest of your life. So check it out. Share those campaigns, share them with your friends, and tell everybody that loves good storytelling. So my question for this half hour, I wanted to come off the tail end of Bloodline and Friar Rush. So much with the comic book world, or if it's a movie, or even a novel, the cover has to tell us a lot. A comic book cover image needs to tell us a lot about the story to draw us in, and very often that will have the hero on the front doing something that fits their character. And we look at that and we say, wow, this guy is he's a butt kicker, or this guy he's slick, he's like James Bond, he's a spy, or this guy is mischievous, or something like that. We can see that, hopefully, if the storytellers and the artists have done their job well. So we've got two, and I say artists, we're all artists, but I'm going to keep using that word for lack of a better word, the illustrators, Elena and Tommy. You can chime in. What do we have in our arsenal, our bag of tricks to introduce a character and instantly let the reader know, let the audience know what this character is all about for the most part? I mean, just give us that. What can we use to introduce them and save tons of time and words? Go ahead. I'll stop talking.
What do you mean, for like a new character or an established character?
Yeah.
Well, I guess the hardest part is with a new character. If someone's opening a brand new book or a new story in whatever format, and we can even say on for motion pictures, when a character comes on scene for the first time, we need to establish, for the most part, what that character is all about, and then we can dig deeper. But when we're limited in our time, what can we use? And we can talk about just comic books. What can we use to convey that to the audience?
Well, it's good that. What do you mean, like? Because I know a lot of comics nowadays, at least, and movie posters also, they tend to just do a lot of headshots.
Yeah.
So they're like, this is the character. Here is like nothing about them besides their looks, what they're wearing. So that's not helpful. So maybe, I guess, thinking about it more of like a splash page, like introducing a character.
Like what they're wearing, I guess if they're, like she's saying, if they're a good guy, you don't want to too menacing, unless it's a bad guy, because I mean, like when you saw Darth Vader for the first time, you just knew that he was but then he's all dressed in black with a black hat on, and so and I think one of the first, I can remember seeing him and on because I'm kind of older, I think, than most of you guys. That I remember seeing him for the first time and going, I like that guy. That guy, I like the bad guys more than the good guys. But
with him specifically, not only was it like what he was wearing, what he was at, it was the actions that like preceded it, because there's a whole shootout, and then he comes in,
and then you hear,
like,
something's wrong. Somebody's walking in with a respirator thing going on, and you're like, God, that's something wrong with that guy. What's he doing? That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. Yeah, and then you see him doing this with his hands. Good guys don't walk around like this all the time. Like something's going on.
No one saw Mr. Burns going like this and was like, "That's a good guy."
He's the good guy. That's right. That's right. The good guys tend to be the smiling ones with the big grins and the chest off. And the bad guys are the ones that are always doing like this. Yeah.
Well, those are fantastic examples. So, but if you were to see, so you got a villain like Darth Vader who comes and he has, of course, his lackeys that do the dirty work, and then he comes marching in and they clear the way. But then you've got like a Grima Wormtongue, who, if you were to draw him, you wouldn't have him being with a cape.
Even if he was in a scene where it was all a really brightly lit scene, he would still be kind of in the shadows, kind of creeping around the side of so I guess mostly dark. What's some bad guys that weren't drawn like Lex Luthor? He's never really drawn like the creepy in the dark shadowy guy. He's always he kind of looks like a good guy, and sometimes I guess he is a good guy, but there's that what do we call the guy that jumps back and forth on the big chart? You were saying? What
do we call him?
Here, let me pull up the list.
Shapeshifter.
But Lex Luthor's always the bad guy. But he always, if you were just to see him standing there, he's in a suit most of the time, and he's, I guess the adult Lex Luthor anyway. When we see him I don't even know if is he still around. I'm not even sure.
No idea.
So I found I was mispronouncing his name. He corrected me, but Cassisi also brought something interesting in the Facebook chat. He's asking, what about Baron Vladimir Harkonnen as a villain? Which I don't know if you guys have.
I don't even know who this is.
Okay, so he's more or less the bad from, I think, I don't know if he carries on into the rest of the books of Dune, but I believe maybe just the first book of Dune, because I know after a while there is like a time skip.
Okay.
But yeah, but he, I don't know if it's different in the movie, because to be honest, I haven't seen the movie. I was warned away from it at an early age. But in the
Good movie.
but in the book, his introduction is kind of the same as Darth Vader's, if I remember correctly. You have Peter's family, who I'm blanking on their clan name, but the Harkonnens essentially raid their the new house they establish on the planet Dune, Arrakis. They set off the family atomics to destroy the shield. The Harkonnens come in, and as they're more or less just walking through the corridors executing people, Harkonnen is walking in with his lackeys giving orders. And I think they do, as far as creating this guy who's supposed to be like manipulating people from the shadows, but is also one of the most unstoppable forces in the Empire, because he is close friends with the Emperor. It really establishes that thing of it's this sudden House Atreides. Thank you, Cassisi. But so they destroy.
Somebody's giving you the notes on the side.
So they destroy House Atreides. But it's this. Things are set up and then immediately get washed away, and now everything is on fire and things are horrible. And I think that does a lot to establish the fact that Harkonnen is this guy who will take time to set things up, but he wants it done quickly and he wants it done dirty. And I think they do a really good job of kind of establishing that.
Yeah, it's a lot like the beginning scene in Conan the Barbarian. Like, you have the battle, and then in comes in the god.
Yeah.
You know, the person we're supposed to hate. And then they do something extra atrocious to, like, show that they're a bad person. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, Vader chokes the guy, and then in Conan, he chops off the mom's head. It's so, I don't know why that's an occurring theme. But, like, if you want to know a character's, like, bad off the bat, just have it really at the beginning.
Just straight up murk someone, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, whenever we're dealing with storytelling, especially if it's a 2-hour movie or a comic book, it's economy of space and time. And that's what I love about the comic book medium, is that we, as writers and the pencilist, inkists, have to convey motion, convey emotion, convey and move the story. Not that we have the tactile, we have the actual physical motion, but then we have to keep the story moving, and you have to tell so much in each panel. So that's why, like what you guys are saying about introducing Darth Vader, we've got 2 hours. We can't have Darth Vader monologue about I'm a bad man and this is why. He has to, boom, he's on stage. Walking Dead, Rick, he's a cop, good guy. That we don't have to, good guy. Then if we want him to be a bad guy, he'd do something bad in the beginning, but he looks like a good guy, and then his actions reinforce that, and that takes a split second for us to see that. So at comic books, introducing a character, we have to, like Tommy was saying, if we draw someone, a hero, you know, or a villain who's the Lex Luthor type villain, or the slinking, shrinking, sneaking Gollum or Grima or that type of character, you have to draw them in that way, that one panel, maybe 2 panels, but that the splash page. What tell us what a splash page is, Elena.
Okay, they're not in every comic, but a lot of older comics tend to start out this way. It's where the whole page is just one big panel. And it's usually an establishing shot, not only of the environment that the story is taking place in, but of characters that are going to accompany it. Like trying to think of a really, really good iconic splash page. Why aren't any coming to mind? This is embarrassing.
Usually, it's the and then they repeat the cover or the title. It's a title page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's some sort of You're right.
And it's usually an establishing shot kind of a thing. And let's see. I'm going to see if I can't find one in all this stuff here.
It tells us a lot about the character.
Yeah.
Or what's going to happen, what we can expect.
Yeah.
From the rest of the comic book. Yeah, and we only have 20 some odd pages to tell that story. We've got to make the most out of it. And along these lines, do names, does the name of a character, I mean, obviously superhero names like Superman, Spider-Man, Iron Man, what is he? He's a Superman. There we go. But do names play into, do you guys think about that when creating a character or when reading a story? Do you see a name and does that convey any meaning to you? Does it sometimes does it not fit with that character?
Yeah,
it depends on. Go for it.
I would say when writing the character, I do a bit of name research for kind of maybe like 2 or 3 like principal characters. On the book I'm currently writing, there's one character who is German, so I very much hunted down like German names that played into how I felt his character ran, what his kind of role was. Kind of going off the conversation Cassisi started on Dune. Without knowledge of the series, if I were to say like the name Baron Harkonnen and Paul Atreides, I'm assuming you guys would probably be easy to decide who probably sounds like the good guy and who sounds like the bad guy.
Yep.
And there's some psychology goes into the fact with Western culture and the fear of Norse-sounding names and the lionization of English-sounding names. And even then, we get names that sound like Lion or Lion or Leo or Leon all sound like good guy names because they're used to the iconography of the proud lion.
Yeah.
And Cassisi also brought up the lack of a name, how there's some characters that maybe just have a title or just the darkness or something like that, where like I don't know what's going on. There's a mystery to it, but I know it doesn't sound great. And I feel like that can also be done to great effect in some stories.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, if you've got a character that you're supposed to take seriously and he's got a goofy sounding name like Zoidberg or something like that, right. You're gonna chuckle at those sounds. And then what's the thing about the K and the D sound being funny? Like I don't. Was there a 30 Rock episode or something like that where they kept laughing at that sound? But yeah, it would detract. Even if you're not focusing on making a name that means something, you want to avoid a name that's going to detract, unless that's part of it. It's part of the character's the chip on their shoulder that they've got a goofy sounding name and they've had to overcome that their entire life. Their parents named them something odd, and it doesn't fit their character, which lends to an interesting character. If you've got time to flesh that out. But that's why we have a lot of comic book characters whose names are Bruce Banner and names like that we don't have to think about too much and wonder if there's meaning behind it. The economy of words and storytelling.
I think the biggest problem you can do in a story is give all your characters similar names. Like things I hate. I hate the Hunger Games because everyone's names just sound like brush or like.
Do they really? I don't know if I've noticed that.
Yeah, it's just these weird names. And like so many people who like read those books from like my generation will use dumb sounding names like that in their stories. And I've had to read so many of these from just random people. But yeah, don't just give your characters like you're like, oh, no one's ever heard this name before. Right. I'll use it. And it's like, Stop.
I want to know what Mr. Tolkien was thinking with Sauron and Saruman.
Yes.
Right.
What is his editor never said, "Hey, JRR, listen."
Yeah.
In the animated Lord of the Rings, which I know
love
you've
those.
I'm joking. I don't know if you've actually seen it. The Ralph Bakshi version, which I absolutely love and I watch every year. It's so horribly terrible. They were concerned that the voice actor, the name Saruman, wouldn't come out, and they thought people get confused with Sauron and Saruman. And so if you watch, every once in a while, Gandalf says Aruman, and then Saruman, and they never went back and re-edited. It's so strange. So he says Aruman.
Oh, didn't notice that.
And and I'm Saruman of many colors. That scene, and which I love, and I'm probably gonna go watch it tonight because that movie is fantastic. But yeah, Aruman, Sauron, Saruman. Yeah, names that are too similar that are going to confuse you later on. Do people know his name was Peta, not Peta, or anything like that until the movies came out? Do we know?
Yeah, there's a ton of problems. Like Hermione is another.
Yeah, I didn't know it was Hermione until the movies came out.
Yeah, people called her like Hermione or something. I'm so sorry. I'll be right back. I gotta let my cat out.
Oh, cats.
Oh,
Cats
all right.
do that.
Say, I don't know if you ever saw the VeggieTales Lord of the Rings parody.
Oh, that's gold.
Yeah,
Pure gold.
but they changed his name to Scary Man.
Scary Man.
Scary Mountain.
Yeah,
That's
it's like,
funny.
it's perfect.
Yeah, they've got the sporks in there. Yeah, it's gold. Yeah, but yeah, I've always wondered that. Why did he? And then later, like didn't in one of the Star Trek movies, isn't the villain Dr. Sauron? Is it Generations #7 with Picard and Kirk in it? The villain Dr. Sauron or something like that. And then isn't there an X-Men character? Isn't the pterodactyl guy named like Sauron or Sauron?
Yeah. So the pterodactyl is like Sauron. And the I forgot the name of that island, but yeah. In Star Trek, I know there's Dr. Soon, who is the guy who
I'll have to look that up. But yeah, it's Dr. Noonien Soon, he's the guy that invents data and all the droids. But the villain in Generations is something like Dr. Sauron or something like that. Maybe it's not as close as I thought. But yeah, a name can go a long way.
Yeah.
And then if we have to pick a name that means something, that all lends to telling us about the character. So good job, guys, with that. What are we missing here? Let me check our discussion points and see if we covered everything. Do we have any questions from the viewers?
Oh, quickly, I just want to say to people who haven't seen this is the Rankin and Bass Return of the King.
Oh, yes.
When we talk about the Lord of the Rings, which like they didn't make Return of the King that was just the one bit, but this is the far superior one, in my opinion.
That's good.
And the Rankin Bass Hobbit, I think I probably say this every time, is way better than Peter Jackson. I'm sorry. If Peter Jackson can watch, love you. But I couldn't do those Hobbit movies. But those are great characters, and I that's why I hate when you have such good characters in books or comic books, and like, well, I haven't seen Riddick, but apparently folks get upset. That great character you start with, you've got all the makings of a great character, and when the artistic crew, whoever decides, directors, writers, do something weird, and it doesn't fit, it's very frustrating, and especially with characters that are so deep that we've fallen in love with them. We love them, and then when they do something that doesn't fit, and also doesn't fit the story. If they mess up, that's great. Screw ups are great. But when it doesn't make sense, no, that's frustrating. That's annoying. That's why I guess people get so emotional about Star Wars and so emotional about the Lord of the Rings because they've had the movies or the books, and they've thrown their lives into these characters, and then somebody decides that
they need to change it.
They need to change it. Yeah, and that's a testament to the great storytelling, the great writing, and character creation that went into those characters that we're invested. We want to see them through. And when it's written in, when there's a screw up, I'm hot and cold on. Has anyone watched Poldark?
I don't think I have.
It's BBC. It's BBC. It's he was one of the dwarves in The Hobbit. He's the one that falls in love with the elf.
He plays Guy of Gisborne on BBC Robin Hood.
I think so. So, anyways, that story is good. It's very soap opera-y, but it's enjoyable. But he screws up all the time, but it's good. It's his character because he's doing good, and then you can see it coming, and you want to say stop, don't, and he messes up. So that's great. That's great character development. But if he were to suddenly decide he wants to kill the king or something like that, that doesn't make any sense. That's foolishness and messes up the character. So we covered archetypes. We covered a little bit of how Enneagrams and our character, our personal character, how we can learn about ourselves, how that can help us make well-rounded characters, and how we interact with people that are different than us can help us also develop good characters. We covered how characters can fit an archetype, but also when Elena made this point early on, it was great, when they're kind of a mashup of divergent styles or archetypes, that really makes an interesting character. And then how we can round out our character, our cast of characters, by having them fill those roles where they meet up nicely. I'll reuse Wolverine and Cyclops in a fight against somebody, great, but then when they've got to agree on something, awful, which is fantastic story or character creation. And then we can also, we know those characters. We know that if they're gonna hash out a debate, there's gonna be fireworks. So that's great stuff. And we talked about how we can throw a character out there, and we can make it instantly apparent what type of character we're going to deal with, and then down the line dig into that and how names and how we draw them works. Any other parting thoughts before we say goodbye, everybody?
This was a lot of fun. I was really glad to do this. It's great.
Elena, you did a great job. We loved having you. And what we're going to do is what we usually do is when we say goodbye, we tell everybody who we are again, where to find us on the interwebs, where to find our work, what we're working on, and then we just say goodnight. So I will start. So my name's Scott Wakefield. I've been the host tonight, and I thank all of our folks here, Tommy, Tim, Elena, Brent, C. Michael, and then we've got some other Wednesday crew members that'll come and go, so keep an eye out for that. Check out our Kickstarter campaigns right now, Friar Rush and Bloodline. Support them. Support indie comics. My project right now can be found at Steam Patriots on Facebook and Instagram. And I think that's it right now for those projects. So like and follow and share, and that will be coming sometime soon from Silverline. Tommy.
You can find me pretty much just look for Florimonte. It's Florimonte. I have a Facebook page where I just post all of my comic book stuff. It's just Thomas Florimonte Jr. The Trump's book that you saw us inking on a little bit here, that should be out in September. But just in my I have a website. You can go to Inferno Studios, that kind of infernostudios.com. That'll take you to all the other stuff. And I didn't mention I'm also the co-owner of Kablam Digital Printing, which we print all of the stuff. So they were, what Scott was saying was correct. We don't print all of the Kickstarter stuff is done ahead of time. I know because I'm the one that's printing it all. So the Friar Rush stuff will coming up next. We're getting done printing the what were we doing the Kickstarter that we just that they just finished running. I'm printing the last of it tomorrow.
Divinity.
Divinity, that's right. Yeah. So it's all done. It should be the Roland will be picking that stuff up tomorrow or Friday. So that should be, if you guys are looking for that Kickstarter, it'll be shipped out ASAP.
Coming soon. Thank you, Tommy.
Yep, you're welcome.
Mr. Timothy.
Hi, I am Tim TK. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Liker at Tim TK Writer. I am on TikTok at Tim Doesn't TikTok. And I'm also on Twitch at AgroBacon, where I'll be live later tonight playing Destiny 2. You can also probably find me doing kickflips behind your local 7-Eleven.
I'll be looking. And Elena.
Hi, I'm Elena H. Morton. You can find me on Instagram at EH so EH and then MORTON. And then on Twitter at Agent Morton if you like Star Trek tweets and art.
Who doesn't?
Oh.
Yeah. Then I have a LinkedIn, but just type in my name on LinkedIn, I guess.
Elena, Tim, Tommy, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching. Share this video. It will be up there on our Facebook page and elsewhere. Share it with your friends. You can rewatch it. And we appreciate all of you. Support the independent publishers. Support us on Kickstarter right now. Keep an eye out for future projects and make mine Silverline. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Good luck.